Hi, I'm Caroline Howard, a biblical counselor and certified life breakthrough coach.
And I'm Chris Oneth, marriage and family therapist and executive director of Downey Park Counseling Associates.
Welcome to our next question, where we attempt to answer the questions of life through conversations in psychology and Christianity.
Remember, this is a place of discovery and definitely not the final answer.
All right,
Okay.
here we go.
Here we are again.
Episode number 2. We came back.
Numero dos.
Hopefully y'all came back too.
So there you have it. Okay.
Because now
Full steam ahead.
we are jumping straight into the
Yes.
deep end on this.
Okay.
We were going to go into the outskirts of the deep end,
Yes.
not the shallow end. And
Yeah,
then
little
this
safety.
is for safety. This is just, golly, this is something that's kind of going on right now. So,
Well, before you get into, wait a second. Okay. Let's,
you don't want to go.
let's
we're taking a
gently
moment?
get into the water. I'm going to ask you a question because the last time I told a story about.
Are you
well,
trying
I
to make me
told-
cry now?
Yes. I told a couple of stories.
Okay.
But the story I started off with was why I don't wear shoes.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to ask you a story.
Okay.
All right.
You're putting me on the spot.
How did you
I'm
even
scared.
get into counseling? What the heck got you into this?
Gosh. That's kind of a crazy story.
Well, that's why I asked.
Okay.
That's what I was hoping for.
So an old church, well, Redeemer, where you go to church now?
Okay.
Which was an amazing church for us, where we found a lot of healing in our marriage. One Sunday there was, oh my gosh, and I'm gonna draw a blank on his name. There was a guy who came in who was a biblical counselor from Christian Counseling Education Foundation.
Oh, CCEF.
Yeah, which is what I have my certificates from.
Awesome.
And he came in and he talked and, was giving his thing. And it's going to drive me crazy. In the middle of this, I'll figure out his name and I'll yell it out. And at the end of that, the pastor got up and said, hey, if, we need more biblical counselors. We need more lay counselors in the church. There's just not enough. And if anybody is, wanting to do that, we would love to pay for half of it.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know. I felt like this nudge, like seriously, like
Whoa.
God going like, that's
like supernaturally lifted
you.
out of your chair towards the line that was forming.
And I didn't do anything about it at first. And then I had some friends in the church who were like, oh yeah, hey, the pastor asked me if I want to do this and I'm going to do it. So they were asking certain people and I wasn't asked. And having the personality that I do is like, well, I wasn't asked. So they must not think I have that gifting or I must be there. And then, it got brought up again and I felt that nudge again and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. So I signed up for the first class with, I think there were 4 other people at the church and we all did the first class together. Everybody else dropped out.
Sole survivor.
I kept going. I kept going. I got my first certificate. I got my second certificate. And
Awesome.
And here I am.
So I can relate that part of how you got here is because my wife said, Chris, you need to hire Caroline.
Yeah. So then we ended up moving from that church to another church. So I was a lay counselor and ran a counseling ministry at Redeemer for a few years.
Right.
And we left that church and went to another church and I didn't have a place to counsel anymore.
Right.
And and your wife.
So the funny thing is, so I like to be adventure guy and I like I'm a number 7 on the Enneagram with an 8 wing.
I'm a 2.
Yes, and Caroline's a 2. So she's a helper and I'm an adventurer because I avoid difficult feelings by doing fun things.
And I love feelings. I love
Yes.
to get all mushy.
Yet at the same time, I'm willing to confront certain people and things because I just get some sort of weird, sick power trip over it. I don't know. Maybe,
Okay.
Perhaps.
Way to be honest.
I'm self-analyzing as we go along here. And so, but part of the behavior of a 7 when they're in stress is to go to a 1, which tends to be very controlling and big. Part of 7's behavior when they're in health is to go to a 5, which is very observational and still.
Okay.
And so over the past number of years, I've learned to be still and found some amazing benefits from that. Anyway, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
The topic here is how I came to bring Caroline on staff, and my wife said, "Babe," because she calls
She
me
would
babe.
say it just like that too.
She goes, "You need to bring Caroline on." And I was like, "Oh, I'm a little worried because we're all licensed counselors, and how's that going to work? And I don't want her to screw anybody up." And
He's like, "I've seen her family, I've seen her kids. I don't want to know."
No. So there was some certain amount of fear there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think it was at the Fletches.
It was.
Yeah, the Fletchers, where I
It
came
was-
up
it
to
was
you
a
and
graduation party,
we
I
had a conversation,
Yeah.
and I said, "Well, let's bring you on."
Yeah.
And woohoo! Everybody leapt up and down, and I was like, "We'll see how this goes."
Yeah.
And
And it
lo
was
and behold,
December 18th when I signed my.
is that right?
It was December 18th. We have an annual Christmas party that we do at my house or another friend's house, and you came early and you brought my my contract.
Isn't that? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's more important to you.
Well, obviously.
And since you have been crushing it ever since.
Oh, thanks.
And it's because I think, obviously, you have these abilities, but part of those abilities is you are curious, right? You draw out, you are present, and those are some of the most valuable assets any counselor can have, right? And so one of the things I like to say about the counselors at Downey Park Counseling is that we all have these different gifts, right? It's like the Magnificent Seven or the Ninja Turtles. One of us is good at nunchucks. The other
Seven.
is
I don't want to be a turtle.
Oh, okay. One's good at throwing
Wait, can we be the
knives. One's
Avengers?
good with a rifle. One's good at flying. The other okay.
Okay, we're the Avengers.
So all that to say
Yeah.
is, and this really also gets into, I think, where Paul says, "Do not be conceited about anything, but in all humility consider others better than yourselves."
Yeah.
Now, to me, there is a frame around that scripture that says there is a risk in us becoming conceited with the gifts he's given us.
Right.
That means those gifts are powerful.
Yeah.
And we are capable.
Right.
So in that, right, I can feel good about the gifts I have.
Yeah.
But if I truly feel good about the gifts I have, I am not threatened by your gifts. Matter of fact, I benefit from them.
Right. Right.
So when I consider you better than me, it's not, well, I'm horrible and I'm a worm and I stink and and all this other stuff. It's, hey man, I'm awesome at this and you are totally awesome at that.
Yeah.
And I benefit from that. And that is a blessing to me because you're awesome. No, you're awesome.
You're awesome.
Right? But again,
Yeah.
not awesome by our own strength.
Right.
But awesome by the gifts that a loving God has given us. And when we are plugged into him, they find their greatest attributes and all that stuff. Because,
Yeah,
of
for
course,
sure.
we have the sin nature and we need him.
Yeah. And I'm blown away every day as I drive to work of like, me, God? Like I still like, it's still like, why? Like me, it's that whole saying, right? Of God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
Yes.
Because again, I said it before, like I was a music major in college. I was going to
With the pink tassel.
I was going to Broadway. And now I'm a counselor and I am
So weird.
on the daily. I'm just like, can I sing through this session? Like, do we melt those out together?
Right.
I don't know. But
It's a crazy journey.
and that's how that's how I know without a shadow of a doubt it's God's gifting, and I don't take it for granted. And I'm
Awesome.
humbled by it
Totally.
on the daily, and just honored that He allows me to sit across from His children and share Him.
Right.
Like,
and I think doing what we were called to do, and by the way, we can be called to many different things over a lifetime.
Yeah.
I think people agonize when they say, like, should I go direction A or direction B? I don't want to go out of God's will.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, short of like shooting heroin or doing something ridiculous, if you decide on job A or job B, he will go with you and you will take him with you. And it doesn't mean one direction is going to be easy. If you don't go the quote unquote right direction. I think a lot of people get caught up in that to say, oh my gosh, I got to go the right direction. If I hit roadblocks, then maybe that means I shouldn't have gone this direction. No, the roadblocks sanctify us because again, we were made over a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And anyway, all that to say is, yes, it is totally awesome being where God has put you and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, even when it's difficult.
Right. Well, thank you for listening to your wife, who was obviously listening to God.
Obviously.
I mean,
she's the direct line
the chain of
Yeah.
command, right? God mail you.
Except when she said she didn't want me to have a motorcycle. That was weird. I don't know what happened.
I see how that played out.
An anomaly.
With the
It was
motorcycle
strange.
out there.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, we avoided the uncomfortable topic.
No.
So our next question
Yes.
today is...
How do we reconcile activism and Christianity?
Ugh.
We don't. Moving on.
We're done for the day. Let's go.
Yes. Okay.
So this one, because again, we weren't going to do this. We weren't going to dive in this deep. But when we were talking, this is so... If you're on social media, especially, this is in your face right now.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing right now in your face, one of them, like that I've noticed, is the boycotting of Target in the month of June.
Absolutely.
The month of June is Pride Month.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got that right.
Okay.
And Target has come out with a line of Pride stuff.
Okay.
Clothing,
Okay.
koozies, cups, just
Okay.
all of it. And so people are calling to boycott Target.
Right. Now what?
Now what? So, I mean, I have so many. And so here's where this is going to be one where we don't land the plane.
True.
I don't think, because this has opened up because boycotting places have been around forever.
Oh,
right?
totally. Absolutely.
Christians do it
Yes.
quite often.
Yes. Disney, boycotting Disney.
Yeah.
And over the past year or so, it's been Bud Light. It's
Yes.
been A. It's been B. It's been all these things.
Yeah.
Right.
There was just Bud Light. There's some stuff with the Dodgers going on right now.
Oh, okay. We won't talk about the Dodgers.
So it's
Miss Giants fan.
Hard. Got my Giants.
You got the orange.
I got the orange.
fingernail
I'm telling
things.
you, there's orange somewhere on my body all through until October.
Well, you can't help it. Your hair's red, and then which is an
Thank
orange.
you for. Oh
thing.
no, it's
no,
red.
it's not orange.
It's not
It's
orange.
red. Okay, got it.
And don't call me Carrot Top,
No, I didn't say that.
because
You said that.
Carrot Tops are green.
Are green?
Carrot
that's
tops are
true.
green.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Okay. Fair
Now
enough.
that we've
You've got the
figured
black
that out.
and you've got the.
And I've got the orange.
Yes, got it.
So we're good. Oh yeah. So there's some stuff going on with the Dodgers right now, and my son's a huge Dodger fan, and so it's just
That's weird. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
Oh, he's such a rebel.
He is.
Both of his parents are Giants fans, and he's like,
Huge
you know what, Dodgers.
Giants fans. I know,
Hurtful.
but this is what great parents we are. We allow him to speak freely.
Whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Whole nother
I
topic.
mean, we won't,
Okay.
we won't get into the football rivalry. Yeah. Okay. So the Target thing. So this has been on my news feed a lot this week. And
Fomenting the disunity.
yeah, and it's there's a certain Instagrammer that I follow who has really been like going full force, and I love her because she's a Christian. She's very just out there and doesn't put up with any crap, and so she has been videoing and posting her own thinking through this and what to do.
Okay.
And so she's kind of landing on boycotting Target.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm not there yet.
Fair
And
enough.
I'm not there. I don't
Fair
even
enough.
want to say yet.
Fair enough.
So one of my biggest issues here, though, is, we boycott these places because they do these things, and then we're going to boycott everybody.
Absolutely.
So don't even go outside and breathe the air, because there's probably a particle in there that was created by somebody
How
who's
dare they?
a non-Christian.
How dare they?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's how far you could go.
As what was it? Who was the old Christian singer? Meltdown at Madame Tussauds. Anyway, can't remember his name, but he would say, "Only drink milk from a Christian cow."
How do you know if it's a Christian
Guilty by
cow?
association. That was the name of the song. Guilty by association.
How do you know if it's
Some
a
of you-
Christian cow?
Good point.
Is he
Good
whole?
point. Is he
I don't know, there's a joke
understand
there. I
the
don't know it.
salvation of Christ and his own sin nature and everything else? So
my goodness.
there. All that to say is,
Yeah. No, I hear you.
we
Yeah.
will put these qualifiers on all these things to help us to feel better.
Yeah.
Then we will claim this is again a risk. I'm not saying this is everybody who decides to boycott, but we will then claim a type of righteousness by our own boycott.
Right.
And that runs into a problem, because if our activism is greater than our love, that is a significant problem. Now, love doesn't mean that we just affirm and accept everything that's going on.
But this is where that comes, because what's going on at Target right now is their CEO said that they were going to pull the pride line
Okay.
Not because all these Christians are going to boycott.
Right.
But because their employees
Right.
have been harassed and received death threats.
And that is egregious.
And that to me is like
Heartbreaking.
That's not love.
Absolutely not.
That makes me mad.
Right. Right.
And I will continue to shop at Target. Actually, don't know
Yeah,
yet. But that's
sure.
my whole thing. Like, if we're not doing it in love, and what is that showing? How is that God? What is that showing that God is?
And I think it gets into some layers here, because I think it's born out of not agreeing. Okay, we don't have to agree with certain lifestyles that are out there.
Right.
We can be, I'm a huge Theology in the Raw Preston Sprinkle fan.
Yes,
And he,
so good.
Yes. He talks about being supporting, not necessarily affirming.
Right.
In other words,
Right.
Anybody who's struggling with gender identity, same-sex attraction, whether they wholeheartedly accept it or they're like, oh my gosh, this is a battle within me, they are people in need of a savior just like us.
Amen.
And I have certain sin issues that are more prevalent than others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In the Christian community, it's tough because that can turn into socially acceptable sin issues. And I can tell you that as a counselor, I have sat
acceptable.
in the context of the Christian social environment.
That just hit some people. Socially acceptable.
Yes. So
because in the Christian world, this is socially acceptable, right? We can make a joke about it. We can
oh yeah.
We get and oh man, I don't want to get off topic. But
Good luck.
And I don't want to get off topic. And I'm also gonna this is gonna be a zinger, but we joke about drinking a lot.
Yep.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
That depends on
But
the
it's-
church, of course, right? Certain churches are like, oh, we don't drink.
Right. But it's socially acceptable to
Sure.
we sit around and we drink and
Right.
you know.
Or it's socially acceptable to, and I do believe in toxic masculinity just as much as I believe in toxic femininity.
Right.
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 And I have sat in front of more couples and where the patriarch, the man, has suppressed and dominated his wife and children. And the moment she says, hey, I don't think that's right, he flips out and says, oh my gosh, you've changed. Well, it's like once she starts to have a voice, oh my gosh, I can't handle that. Right. That's not about being a godly man. That's about, I can't deal with this, with being challenged and the emotion that it brings up.
Yeah.
And so therefore I have to keep suppressing. And again, it's not conscious.
Yeah.
So even love and understanding needs to be shown toward a person like that. Definitely strong boundaries.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
All that to say is there is not a one of us who is not without our own sin. So does that mean we, again, it goes down to, do we boycott everything? I'd have to boycott myself.
Yeah. Right? Right? Because I'm full of sin.
Yes.
So then this is where this led me. This is kind of been my thought pattern, and as I've been reading this and following along with this Instagrammer, is then in my head I said verse was be in the world, not of the world.
Yes.
And one thing I've learned as an adult is because I've heard so many sayings growing up in a Christian home, like I've learned that some of these are just sayings and they're not actually Bible verses.
Booyah.
And so I'm thinking be in the world, not of the world. I'm like, okay, well, we can be in the world. We can shop at Target.
Yeah.
We don't be of the world. We don't buy the pride stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then I'm like, what verse is that?
Good question.
It's not.
Uh-oh. Well, okay. Are you looking at different translations and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. Something to consider.
Okay. So you tell me.
I mean, listen, I'm a counselor, not a pastor.
So there are verses. I know. I'm just putting you on the spot here. There are verses like John 17:16. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it.
Right. Okay.
They do not belong to this world any more than I do. These are the different versions of that.
Okay.
English Standard Version. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. So kind of the same thing.
So Christ was talking about that about himself.
Yeah.
So he's not okay.
Okay, so let me just say there is no and again, I'm not going to say this 100% because I am not a theologian.
Awesome. Yes, neither am I.
But I could not find a verse that said,
Okay.
be in the world.
Given all your internet-powered
but
resources,
not of
you could
the
not.
world.
Okay. Okay.
So then that just tailspin me, and I'm like, now I don't know where the heck I stand.
Well, but now at face value, in the world, not of the world, does make sense, right? We are,
Right.
even as Sprinkle says, we are exiles in Babylon, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are here among the government, among the culture, everything set apart. There is a place for holiness.
Yes.
Absolutely, we should vote. We should have a voice.
Yes.
But what happens is we take that voice and we say, this is my righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, because I've boycotted Target, there's potential. This is not everybody, but because I boycotted Target, because that is what they're doing is wrong and it's horrible. And this is a righteous stance I'm taking, even, God forbid, righteous indignation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Now that muddies the waters because even our anger
Mm-hmm.
can really be about fear. I am afraid of what's happening to this culture. I am afraid of what's happening to Target, right? And so
if
we
I
take
go into
that.
Target,
Then I'm endorsing it and stamping it and saying, "You woohoo!"
so can I say I kind of want to be like WWJD? What would Jesus do? Would Jesus
Right.
have gone into Target?
Absolutely, I think.
I think he would have too.
He would go into Target
he sat
and he would
ate with the sinners.
he would
with
talk to
the-
people. He would ask them questions and then
Right.
get this. He would listen.
So here's some verses. Like this is when you Google not of this world and you get verses. He says, "Do not be conformed to this world."
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Going and shopping at Target
Right.
and not buying Pride stuff is not conforming to the world.
Right.
He says, if you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you.
Aha. Right.
But that doesn't mean don't shop at Target.
Well, and so I think a lot of Christians take that verse and they say, "Well, I'm going to be hated." And so they become
yes.
obnoxious people.
Yes.
And they say, "Well, the world's going to hate me," when it's really kind of their own stuff from the past,
yes.
their own fear that turns into anger
Yeah.
and even bitterness, but then they lord over others and somehow they think it's righteous.
So let me chastise that employee at Target for working at a place that has Pride stuff because they're
Right.
going to hate me anyways.
Oh,
'Cause I'm
sure.
doing my Christian duty.
And they really think it's Christian stuff. Or I'm going to see a person who is transgender, and that's going to create a discomfort in me. I don't know what to do with that discomfort because I haven't learned to connect to myself properly. And I will take that discomfort and ridicule them, even though they are a person who is struggling with pain.
Who is wiggling in their seats right now? Yeah.
So again, if we're not demonstrating the love of Christ, it doesn't mean we're like, "Yay, you've done this thing." Not at all, right? But for me, when I am guilt-ridden over my sin, when I am running from myself and all this other stuff, someone telling me that I'm going to hell or that I'm defiling things or whatever is not going to open my eyes and say, "You know what? Tell me more about this Jesus."
Right?
What's
Right.
going to bring? Listen, one of the most godly, oh my gosh, I'm going to start crying again. Can't believe you do this to me. So
This is a safe place. This is
thank
why
you.
we have tissue
We
here.
got the tissue right here. So
Tears are flowing.
I worked for the county years ago, mental health, and my job was to do intakes. And I was doing an intake. It was for youth, and I was doing an intake assessment on this 9-year-old youth, and his mother was she was a lesbian, same sex attracted, and she told me her story, and okay. So essentially it was a story of pain, right? She she had been abused as a child, 14, she was from Florida, 14 years old, believes she is same-sex. I mean, again, come to the understanding she is same-sex attracted. She comes out to her mom. Her parents absolutely disown her.
Wow.
Her father essentially give her a one-way ticket. They said, "Anywhere you want to go, but not here."
Wow.
God, the pain, man.
Yeah.
So all this,
Yeah.
so they sent her to, she's, I don't know where to go. So she went to San Francisco. She got caught up in the people that accepted her, and those were the druggies.
That's what she was looking for.
Absolutely.
Acceptance.
Absolutely. And so that
Where
brought her
do I
to Modesto.
Okay.
And I probably shouldn't give these as detailed information, but essentially she was raped.
Wow.
And when she told me this, she looked at her son and she said, well, the reason I had him is, and she leaned in close and she said, I was raped so that he wouldn't hear. And then she saw the look on my face. She said, but I don't think about that when I see him.
Wow.
All I see is that he's my boy and I love him. And in that moment, I'm like, this is the most genuine, hardcore, visceral, pro-life moment that I've ever experienced. And I was raised in the church.
Right.
And I've been raised around people that are like pro-life, picket, abortion clinics, all that stuff. And, there's a certain place for speaking out against abortion. I totally agree with that.
But you experienced it with someone who...
The real deal, man.
...was living in sin, right? But that wasn't the issue. And had you been like prejudged
oh my
her,
gosh,
or not wanted anything to do with her because
I learned
she was
more about being
same-sex
pro-life
attracted.
in that moment from that woman
than
I had ever experienced in my life. Right. And so in that moment, I'm feeling this absolute overwhelming love because she has demonstrated to me what true love is to her child. Wow. And it wasn't just a distant you should keep the child and we don't have to deal with it. It was, she was living it. And she loved that boy, man. She loved that. I mean, she just, in the story that she told about how she took care of him and everything else.
Yeah.
And was she, was she buttoned up and perfumed and coiffed? Absolutely not. She was as raw as it gets, right?
Yeah.
But man, it was like, my mind is, now see, that's one of those moments that it's like, whoa. And then again, stirring on that throughout the years has forever changed me. So.
No doubt.
So, as activists, right?
But you didn't write her off, right? And
no.
And isn't that what boycotting? Isn't
Good
it
point.
writing?
Good point.
It's writing them off.
It'd be like, I can't associate with you because you're like that. And so, aren't we saying that to Target? Because you're like this, I'm not going to really associate with you.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, we might as well go live out in the woods.
Then I can't associate with you and you can't associate with me because I mean, this might blow your mind, but I actually have sin in my life. I sin.
Clutch my pearls.
I know, right?
Right.
So, if we,
So.
Okay. My brain is swirling.
Right. Life,
and
man.
I still have not found a verse,
right,
that says that. I mean, set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. Well, if I'm setting my mind on God and his love for me that I should overflow out onto other people, then my mind isn't on, should I boycott Target or not, things of this earth.
Yes. And I think what we get caught up in is we take things personally.
Yeah.
We take the fact that Target is demonstrating an example of being part of our culture, part of a culture. That's all they're doing. We take it personally. And when I was a younger man, I used to work at the Gallo Winery. I'd be around some of the crafts talk and everything, and oh my gosh, I would take it personally. Oh, how dare you talk about that? And I would try to control people's behavior. That was all about my own discomfort,
right?
My own discomfort with those feelings, and I was making it about me.
Yeah.
And then wanting to shut them down. And that's why, a lot of people back then was like, Chris is obnoxious. And I was, because I need a savior.
Was.
Well, yeah. So jury's still out.
So sorry. Okay. So here's the other thing I keep hearing too, is that a lot of these moms, because it's mostly moms that I've been reading, are like, now I can't take my kids into Target.
Okay.
Now I have to filter that from their eyes. And I am just like, why? Because then you're just creating another generation that is going to turn their backs on these people.
Yeah. So then what would you, where do you lean with that? What do you do with that? Like, if not that, then what?
I know, because I think about that because I have a 12-year-old son.
Sure.
You know, who loves the Dodgers? And I'm like, do I
was
tell
gonna
him
say.
about what's going on with the Dodgers?
Yeah.
And then he's going to be like, Mom, you're only saying that because you're a Giants
Oh, right.
fan.
You muddied the waters. Yeah.
You know, and so it's, yeah. And for me, it's a healthy conversation with my son
Love it.
of, yeah, like, look at that. Like, I mean,
Which is uncomfortable.
Which is uncomfortable. And he doesn't always want to have them either. But I know if I still say it, it's going to get in his brain. He's going to listen no matter what. He doesn't have a choice. You know, but we can walk in there and say, like, yeah, look at that. Like, no, we're not going to go buy any of that stuff. We don't support that. But those are human beings like you and me, kid.
Yes.
Like, what, you know, you struggle with this sin. What if I said, I'm not hanging out with you anymore because of this sin?
Oh my gosh.
You know, and he goes to public school. So he's, you know, he's
public school.
He's
going to become a sinner.
He's a junior higher now, which he just became yesterday.
Oh, hey.
Junior higher. And so he's going to be around this stuff. Yeah. Why would I keep him in a bubble?
Yeah, and so that then I love your point about the conversation, about having a conversation,
healthy
because I think, I mean, M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good movie.
And my buddy Fletch said that is the greatest homeschooling movie I've ever seen.
Oh, it totally is.
Because it's about keeping the quote unquote evil out.
Yeah.
Not realizing that it's in the heart,
so
man.
I homeschooled my two daughters, my oldest two daughters, for 10 years.
Sure.
I kept them because that's what I thought I was doing. Was keeping
yes,
them
and we homeschooled our kids.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I see the damage that did now. I was raised in a Christian home, went to private school. All my parents' friends were Christians. Basically just went to church. We had a couple relatives that weren't Christians, but we kind of didn't hang out with them.
Right.
I was kept in a bubble. When I got out of that bubble and went to like a public college, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And then I meet my husband, who wasn't a Christian, and his family, who wasn't
even though his name is Christian.
I know, even though his name is Christian.
The irony.
He was a Christian, but not a Christian.
Did you tell them, hey, I found a Christian man? Huh? You didn't think of that
told me
one.
I had to marry a Christian. You didn't say he had to be able to.
Nice. The loophole. I love it.
Didn't ever think about that.
Yeah.
But man, my world was so rocked.
Yeah.
My world was so rocked, and I was just like, I didn't want my kids to be out that way, and then I homeschooled them, so I kind of screwed up a little bit there. But
and don't get me wrong, because homeschooling is a blessing.
Yes.
And if that is where your conviction is,
totally.
I think in this, what we run the risk of doing is becoming an activist for our own opinion.
Yeah.
Right. And if that activism, again, is without love, then what we're doing is simply saying, you know, we're fighting beliefs here. So if we end up making fun of those who boycott Target or somehow lording it over them that we are so enlightened, right? That's wrong too. And that's not the love of Christ, man.
And so God is going to convict us differently.
Totally.
I'm not going to fall on the same side as someone else, and that's okay. But we
absolutely
have to have love. So activism has to have love, but it also has to have biblical backing.
Yes.
So don't just like I did, because I was like, oh, I know exactly where I stand because God says to be in the world, not of it.
Yeah.
But then when I went to look at the scriptures, I was like, oh, wait, there's some other things there.
So confession time for me. I like I said, I'm partly an 8.
Okay.
I'm like a mix. Like my dogs are German Shepherd and Husky. So I've got
you were going to bring the dogs up eventually.
Bit of the German with the French, maybe. No, I'm just kidding.
So what are you, a mix up?
No, I don't. I'm making stuff up now.
So you're part 7, part 8.
So yes, part 7, part 8. 7 with an 8
you
wing.
wing 8. Yeah, that's right.
Wing 8. So unfortunately, I like to argue.
What?
I know, it's weird.
I did not know this about you.
It's some sort of weird compulsion and insecurity. So true confession, sometimes, and I have to kick myself, I get caught up on Facebook. And so what then I tend to run into are activists on the other side. In other words, Christians are self-righteous. They have no love. They should love like this. They don't know scripture, all that stuff. And then, of course, I'm like, hey, wait a second. Aren't you being as judgmental as what you say Christians are being?
Yes.
And there may be some truth in there. Yeah. But again, if I'm doing it without love and just trying to prove a point or win an argument, then I'm no better than anyone that pricks that thing in me that says, oh, you got a problem, right?
Yeah.
So even as activists, being able to understand and empathize with the point that others are making.
Yes.
Part of this,
not wrong, just different.
Absolutely. And part of this, and I'm going to say this, and this is why we have this thing.
Are you going to say that every episode? Because you said it the last episode too.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to say this.
Are you ready?
We're going to ruffle feathers.
The mask issue.
I might be walking out. Oh, the mask issue.
So, talking to my
It's
pastor
okay
friends.
If you wear a mask.
What's that?
It's okay if you feel the need to
Absolutely.
wear a mask.
I didn't wear a mask everywhere, but it didn't. And here's the deal: struggling with people who potentially do wear a mask,
right?
Or even struggling with
still
people who are walking on the street by themselves outside wearing a mask, or in their car wearing a mask. Now, my self-righteousness says, "What the heck? That's ridiculous." Yeah. But I have to recalibrate to the love of Christ and try to say, "Wait a second, Chris. You don't know what they've been through."
Right.
You have no, and if a relative of theirs could have gotten sick, they could have gotten sick, or who knows, maybe they have a past of fear and just constriction and all this other stuff in which their lives are such a battleground.
Yeah.
And then for you to come along and go, meh,
right,
because they're wearing a mask is not Christ at all.
So true, because my son was in elementary school, those primitive years during COVID, and had to wear a mask to school every single day.
Right.
And then it came, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. And he was like, no, I'm still wearing a mask. And so we had to have this conversation, because I was like, why? What is it in you that you like? It's become a comfort. You feel fear.
Yeah, sure.
Well, a lot of those kids, it's when their faces start to break out, or the masks actually were
and
making
now you
their
know
faces,
the rest of
right,
the story
break out. And so it was a way to like hide himself. It became
I
for a
saw
lot
that
of these
a lot.
kids how they could hide.
Yes.
And so it was having to work through that in him.
Wow.
But you're right. You don't know what those people, or maybe they're sick and they're just like, I'm not going to spread my germs. Well, thank you for wearing a mask.
Absolutely. That would be like totally considerate.
That. Yeah.
So I think the bottom line here is, as we are trying to do here, is having that conversation, right? If you hear about someone who's boycotting Target, hey, say, help me understand. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Or if you say someone who's like, I'm going to go buy all the LGBTQ stuff,
right,
all of it, and then like put it in my house. Hey, help me understand that. Tell me about that.
There's an Instagrammer I follow, Carlos Whitaker. He has an amazing book, How to Human.
Whoa.
And his saying is, don't stand on issues, walk with people.
I love that.
And I like that. That opened my mind a lot, because I realized how many issues I stand on, and the amazing conversations I've missed out on with people. Yeah. And to expand my mind and my knowledge, right?
Sure.
Because knowledge is power. I don't think that's biblical either, is it? Probably not. I'll have to look that up. But so to say that, like, and you kind of said this too, with like each side. First of all, we all know there's algorithms on social media. So you're going to get all of, if you're like, I'm going to boycott Target, and you put that on social media, all you're going to get and see are all the people that are boycotting Target.
Yeah.
And you're not going to hear the other side.
Yes.
Go search for the other side. Follow those people too. Get the knowledge of both sides.
Yes.
So that you can make your own personal decision.
I love that. And I would take that a step further, in that if you do research the other side a little bit.
Yeah.
Be prepared to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And be prepared to sit in that discomfort.
Yes.
In other words, the discomfort is not going to kill you. Yeah. It may be challenging, again, some of the stuff that you've put potentially in a box to keep safe. Mm-hmm. And if it has you feel uncomfortable, even dig into that a little bit. Like, oh my gosh, I'm uncomfortable because, and yes, it could be the pat answer. Well, it's like, well, that's not right. And this, that, and the other thing. But it could also be because, oh my gosh, I'm not used to even like reconciling being around a person who is struggling with this stuff or has a different view. Right. Right. If that's the case, if we are like, I ain't going to be around another person that has a different view, then we're no better than, the genocidal types that say we have to wipe out anybody who doesn't agree with us.
Right. Again, look who Jesus ate with. Look who he talked to.
Thank you, Lord.
And also,
he ate with me.
I know. Also, it's okay to not have an answer.
Yeah, totally.
It's okay to say, I don't know which side I'm on.
Totally.
And it's okay to say, I'm going to boycott Target, and then tomorrow go, you know what? I had a change of heart.
Totally.
Or vice versa. Like, there's, it's
that.
okay to change.
Love that.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel that transition of discomfort as you do kind of wrestle with this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and people will judge you. But guess what? The judgment of people doesn't matter. It's the judgment of God that we need to be focused on.
Absolutely.
And it matters what he thinks and what he wants you to do.
Yeah.
And what he wants me to do might be different than what he wants you to do.
Amen. Thanks for joining us today as we continue our journey talking about life's many questions.
To stay connected with us, you can follow us at Downey Park Counseling on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also follow Caroline on Instagram at Relatable Caroline. And make sure you tune in next week for our next question.